Reading Day, and this is the day we read from a paranormal-themed book. Sometimes the stories are true, sometimes they're not. But today's topic is true Irish ghost stories. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Just stopped before it began. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Charlotte. Good evening. I hope you had a great weekend this weekend. Let me get the other network started here, and then we'll get the show on the road, okay? So just give me a second. Okay, welcome everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you had a great weekend. It's cold here. See, I got my little sweatshirt on. It is cold. This room that this particular studio is in is the darker of the two. Not the darker, is the colder. Let me make my adjustments over here. Okay, because I want to make sure we have audio. Okay, is the colder of the two rooms in my house. So it's always the coldest. The other room that I broadcast my tarot card readings out of, that one is always the warmer one. That's why that was my mother's room. So we're in here in the cold room, what I call the cooler. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you think you have a paranormal need, we can help you out. It might take us a while to get to you because California is this huge state, but we'll definitely help you out. Anyway, welcome everybody. Today is Sunday Reading Day, so I'm going to be reading from maybe two paranormal themed books because we're almost at the end of this true Irish ghost story books. So we'll see how far we get. You know, if we spend the hour and then just end with this book, that's great. If not, there's another book right in line behind that one. But I want to welcome everyone. Obviously, let me get this thing going over here too. I got multiple buttons to push, so just bear with me. Okay. Let me get this started over here. I've got two chat rooms going. There's a chat room going over here at Restream, and then I have the Clock app chat room going. Just know that I don't know if I have a moderator in there. I hope I do, because I cannot see what you guys are writing. So I need you to be on your best behavior and behave yourself while I'm reading. Okay, I'll spend an hour reading. I do have thank you very much for the likes. I do have a goal of, 10 night stars. If you guys can help me with that, that's great. If not, that's fine too. All I ask is that you like, share, and follow. Just like, share, and follow this. We do this every Sunday, and we read from a book, and sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Today happens to be true. The next one I don't think is true. I think the next one's based on ghosts and literature. But anyway, let's get on with it, and like I said, I'll read for about an hour, and then we'll call it a day, okay? So thank you very much for coming, everybody. Chapter 10, Mistaken Identity, and the conclusion of the book. We've given various instances of ghostly phenomenon wherein the witnesses have failed at first to realize what it was they saw or partook in the way of abnormal. There are also many cases where so-called ghost has turned out to be something very ordinary. Though more often than not, such incidents are of a very trivial or self-explanatory nature. E.g., where a sheep, in a churchyard almost paralyzed a midnight wayfarer till he summoned up courage to go investigate. There are many which have had an interest of their own, and which often throw into prominence the extraordinary superstitions and beliefs which exist in the country. Our very first story, which is sent to us by Mr. de Lacy of Dublin, deals with an incident that occurred in the early part of last century, an epidemic, which was then rife in the city, was each day taking its toll of the unhappy citizens. The wife of a man living in Marion Square was stricken down and hastily buried in a churchyard in Donnybrook, which is now closed. On the night after the funeral, one of the city police, or Charlies, as they were then called, passed through the churchyard on his rounds. When nearing the center, he was alarmed to hear a sound coming from a grave close at hand, and turning, saw a white apparition sit up and address him. This was all he waited for. With a shriek, he dropped his lantern and staff and made off as fast as his legs could carry him. The apparition thereupon took up the lamp and staff and walked to Marion Square, to the house of mourning. It was admitted by the servants, and, to the joy of the whole household, was found to be the object of their grief returned. A less dislike from the grave. It seems that the epidemic was so bad that the bodies of the victims were interred hastily and without much care. The unfortunate lady had really been in a state of coma or trance, and as the grave was lightly covered, when she came to, she was able to force her way up, and seeing the Charlie passing, she called him for assistance. An occurrence which at first had all the appearance of partaking in the supernatural, and which was afterwards found to have a curious explanation, is related by Dean Avondale of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin. At Dunluce Rectory, County Antrim, he writes, I had a strange experience. There was a force pump attached to the back wall of the house, and many people drew water from it, as it was better than any obtained at that time in Bushmills. We used to notice, when going to bed, the sound of someone working the pump. All the servants denied that they ever used the pump between 11 p.m. and 12 midnight. I often looked out the back window when I heard the pump going, but I couldn't see anyone. I tied threads to the handle, but although they were found unbroken in the morning, the pumping continued, sometimes only for 3 or 4 moves of the handle. On many nights, no pumping was heard. The manservant sat up with a gun and the dog, but he neither saw nor heard anything. We gave it up as a bad job, and still the pumping went on. After about 2 years of this experience, I was one night alone in the house. It was a calm and frosty night, and I went to bed about 11:30 p.m. and lay awake. Suddenly, the pump began to work with great clearness and mechanically. I counted the strokes. They were exactly 12. I exclaimed, "The dining room clock." I sprang from bed and went down and found that the clock was fast, as it showed 2 minutes past 12 o'clock. I set back the hands to 11:55 and lay in bed again, and soon the pumper began as usual. The explanation was that the vibration of the rising and falling hammer was carried up to the bedroom by the wall, but the sound of the bell was never heard. I found afterwards that the nights when there was no pumping, it was always windy. A man was walking along a country lane at night, and as he was coming round a bend, he saw a coffin on the road in front of him. At first, he thought it was a warning to him that he was soon to leave this world, but after some hesitation, he finally summoned up the courage to give the thing a poke with his stick. When he found that the coffin was merely an outline of seaweed, which some passer-by had made, whereupon he went on his way very much relieved. The unbeliever will state that rats or mice are more often than not the cause of so-called ghostly noises in a house. That, at any rate, instances have happened where one or another of these rodents has given rise to fear and trepidation in the inmates of a house or bedroom is proved by the following story from a Dublin lady. She tells how she was awakened by a most mysterious noise, for which she could give no explanation. Overcome by fear, she was quite unable to get out of bed, and lay awake the rest of the night. When light came, she got up. There was a big bath in the room, and in it she found a mouse, which had been drowned in its efforts to get out. So her haunting was caused by what we may perhaps call a ghost in the making. The devil is very real to the average countryman in Ireland. He has given his name to many spots, which for some reason or other have gained some ill repute. Excuse me. The Devil's Elbow, a very nasty bit of road down in Kerry, is an instance in point. The following story shows how prevalent the idea is that the devil is an active agent in the affairs of this world. A family living in R.D. County, Louth, were one night sitting reading. I don't like the things that make noise. Were one night sitting reading in the parlor. The two maids were amusing themselves at some card game in the kitchen. Suddenly, there was a great commotion, and the two girls, both from the country, burst into the sitting room, pale with fright and almost speechless. When they had recovered a certain amount, they were asked what was the matter. The cook immediately exclaimed, "Oh, sir, the devil, the devil. He knocked 3 times at the window and frightened us dreadfully, and we had just time to throw the cards into the fire and run in here before he got us." One of the family, on hearing this, immediately went out to see what had caused all this trepidation, and found a swallow with a broken neck lying on the kitchen windowsill. The poor bird had evidently seen the light in the room, and in its efforts to get near it, had broken its neck against the glass of the window. An amusing account of a Swato haunting comes from County Tipperary, and shows how extraordinarily strong is the countryman's belief in supernatural phenomena. The incidents related occurred only a very short time ago. This book was written in the 1800s, early 1900s. So when they talk about it occurring a short time ago, okay, I'm just saying a reference. And I'm doing my best to clean these up because, like I said, the references in here don't quite jive with what we have going on right now in our society. Okay, a farmer in the vicinity of Thurles, unalived, leaving behind him a young widow. The latter lived alone after her husband's death. And about 3 months after the funeral, she was startled one night by a loud knocking at the door. On opening the door, she was shocked at seeing the outline of a man dressed in a shroud. In a solemn voice, he asked her, did she know who he was? On receiving a reply in the negative, he said that he was her late husband, and that he wanted £10 to go into heaven. The terrified woman said she had not got the money, but promised to have it ready if he would call again the next night. The apparition agreed, then withdrew, and the distracted woman went to bed wondering how she was to raise that money. Sorry for the clicking, you guys, over here on the mic. I got to figure out. It never used to do that before, but it's doing it now. So I think because I have it. I think the line's too tight over here, or I wouldn't be doing that. I have it too tight. Going down the cord. Okay. When morning came, she did not take long in telling her friends of her experience, in the hope that they would be able to help her. Their advice, however, was that she should tell the police, and she did so. That night, the apparition turned at the promised hour and asked for his money. The amount was handed to him, and in a low voice he said, now I leave this earth and go to heaven. Unfortunately, as he was leaving, a sergeant and a constable of the constabulary stopped him, questioned him, and hauled him off to the barracks to spend the remainder of the night in the cell, where no doubt he decided that the haunting game has its trials. Okay. An occurrence of very much the same description took place in County Clare about 3 years ago. Again, the departed husband returns to his sorrowing wife, sits by the fire with her, chatting no doubt of old times, and before he leaves for the other world, is regaled with pig's head and plenty of whiskey. The visit is repeated the next night, and a request made for money to play cards with down below. The wife willingly gives him the money. Again he comes, and again he borrows on the plea that he had lost that night before, but hoped to get better luck next time. On the woman telling him a neighbor to watch was to keep. On the woman telling a neighbor a watch. On the woman. Sorry, guys. On the woman telling a neighbor a watch was kept for the dead man's return, but he never came near the place again. An account of a police court trial, which appeared in the Irish Times of 31st December 1913, emphasizes in a very marked degree the extraordinary grip that superstition has over some of the country people. A young woman was on her trial for stealing £300 from the brother of her employer, Patrick McFall of Armagh. District Inspector Lowndes, in opening the case for the Crown, told the bench that the money had been taken out of the bank by McFall to buy a holding, for the purchase of which negotiations were going on. The money was carelessly thrown into a drawer in a bedroom, and left there till it would be wanted. A short time afterwards, a fire broke out in the room, and a heap of ashes was all that was found in the drawer, though little else in the room besides a few clothes were injured. The McFalls appeared to accept their loss with complacency, which could only be accounted for by the idea that they entertained that the money was destroyed through spiritual intervention, that there were ghosts in the question, and that the destruction of the money was to be taken as a warning directed against a matrimonial arrangement, into which Michael McFall was about to enter. The accused girl was servant to the McFalls, who discharged her a few days after the fire, but before this she had been into Derry and spent a night there. During her stay she tried to change 3 20-pound notes with the help of a friend, but change was refused, and she had to abandon the attempt. If some of the money was burned, some of it was certainly in existence 3 days later, to the amount of 60 pounds. One thing was manifest, and that was that an incredible amount of superstition appeared to prevail amongst families in that neighborhood, when the loss of such a sum as this could be attributed to anything but larceny. And it could for a moment be suggested that it was due to spiritual intervention to indicate that a certain course should be abandoned. Alright? If you guys do decide to gift over on TikTok, just know that... Okay. Just know that I can't see the gift, so if I do have moderators in there, they will thank you for me. The moderators will thank you for me. Alright, like, follow, share, everybody. Like, follow, share. Here is the conclusion of the book, and hopefully when I get done, if there's time to start the new book, hopefully, because I did download the new book several times, hopefully I'll be able to access it. The foregoing tales have been inserted, not in order, that they may throw ridicule on the rest of the book, but that they may act as a wholesome corrective. If all ghost stories could be subjected to such rigid examination, it is probable that the mystery in many of them would be capable of equally simple solution. Yet, a remnant would be left. And here, though it may seem somewhat belated, we must offer you an apology for the use of the terms ghost and ghost story. This book includes such different items as hauntings, death warnings, visions, and hallucinations, some of which obviously can no more be attributed to discarnate spirits than can the present writer's power of guiding his pen along the lines of a page. Whether others of these must be laid to the credit of such unseen influences is just the question. But in truth, there was no other expression than ghost stories, which we could have used, or which could have conveyed to our readers within a reasonable verbal limits, as they glanced at its cover, or at an advertisement of it. A general idea of the contents of this book. Okay, the day will certainly come when, before the steady advance of scientific investigation and the consequent influencing of public opinion, the word ghost will be relegated to limbo, and its place taken by a number of expressions corresponding to the results obtained from the analysis of the phenomenon hitherto grouped under this collective title. That day is approaching, and so, though we have used the term throughout the pages of this book, it must not therefore be assumed that we necessarily believe in ghosts, or that they are bound to the theory that all or any of the unusual happenings therein recorded are due to the action of visitants from the other world. We may now anticipate one or two possible points of criticism. It might be alleged that the publication of such a book as this would tend to show that the Irish nation was enslaved in superstition, without stopping to review the question as to what should or should not be classified as superstition. We would be joined by gleefully pointing to a leading article in the Irish Times of January 27, 1914, which gives us a short account of a lecture by Mr. Lovett on the folklore of London. Folklore in London, in the metropolis of stolid Englishmen. The fact is that the Irish people are not one whit more superstitious than their cross-channel neighbors, while they are surely on a far higher level in this respect than many of the continental nations. They seem to be more superstitious because, we speak without wishing to give any offense, the popular religion of the majority has incorporated certain elements, which may be traced back to pre-Christian times, but that they are actually more superstitious, we beg leave to doubt. Another and more important series of objections is stated by one of our correspondents as follows. I must confess that I can never reconcile with my conception of an all-wise creator the type of ghost you are at the present interested in. It seems to me incredible that the spirits of the departed should be permitted to return and indulge in ghostly repertoire of jangling chains, gurgling, etc., apparently for the sole purpose of scaring housemaids and other timid or hysterical people. The first and most obvious remark on this is that our correspondent has never read or heard a ghost story, save of the Christmas magazine type, or else he would be aware that the above theatrical display is not an integral part of the ghostly repertoire, and also that persons who are not housemaids and who cannot be classed as timid and hysterical, but who, on the other hand, are exceedingly sober-minded, courageous, and level-headed, have had experiences and been frightened by them too, which cannot be explained on the ordinary grounds. Okay? But on the main point, our correspondent is begging the question, or at least assuming as fully proved a conclusion, which is very far from being so. Is he quite sure that the only explanation of the strange sights and weird noises is that they are brought about by the action of departed spirits. We naturally exclude these cases of deliberate fraud, which in reality are very unusual. And if so, what meaning would be put upon the word spirits? And even if it be granted that the phenomena are caused by the inhabitants of another world, why should it be impossible to accept such a theory? Because of its apparent incompatibility with any conception of an all-wise creator, of whose workings we are to whose workings we are so profoundly ignorant. Are there not many things in the material world which, to the limited human mind of our correspondent, must seem puzzling, meaningless, useless, or even harmful? He does not therefore condemn these offhand. He is content to suspend judgment, is he not? Why cannot he adopt the same attitude with respect to psychic phenomena? Our correspondent might here make the obvious retort that it is we who are begging the question, not he, because such happenings are described in this book have no existence apart from the imaginative or inventive faculties of certain persons. This would be equivalent to saying bluntly that a considerable number of people in Ireland are either liars or fools, or both. This point we shall deal with later on. Our correspondent belongs to a type which knows nothing at all about cyclical research, and is not aware that some of the cleverest scientists and deepest thinkers of the day have interested themselves in such problems. They have not found the answer to many of them. Goodness knows if they ever will this side of the grave. But at least they have helped to broaden and deepen our knowledge of ourselves, our surroundings, and our God. They have reveled to us. Okay, guys, now I know I usually don't talk about religion. Okay. So don't, like I said, this is written in 1914. I'm just trying to get through the conclusion on this, okay? But I know we don't usually talk about religion on this channel. Welcome everybody that's coming in to listen to today. So let's just keep it at that, okay? I'm just reading what's in here. All right? This doesn't necessarily reflect the opinions of California Haunts. They have revealed to us profundities in human personality hitherto unsuspected. They have suggested means of communication between mind and mind almost incredible, and, in the writer's opinion at least, these points have very important bearing on our conceptions of the final state of mankind in the world to come. And so, they are preparing the way for the finer and more ethical conception of God and His creation, which will be the heritage of generations yet unborn. The materialist day is far spent, and its sun nears the horizon. Another objection to the study of the subjects of death within this book is that we are designedly left in ignorance of the unseen world by a wise creator, and therefore it is grossly presumptuous, not to say impious, on the part of man to make any attempt to probe into questions which he has not been intended to study, which is equivalent to saying that it's impious to ride a bicycle, because man was obviously created a pedestrian. This might be true if we were confined within a self-contained world which had and could have no connection with anything external into itself. But the very essence of our existence here is that the material and spiritual worlds interpenetrate, or rather, that our little planet forms part of a boundless universe teeming with life and intelligence, yet lying in the hollow of God's hand. He alone is supernatural, and therefore transcendent and unknowable. All things in the universe are natural, though, very often, they are beyond our normal experience, and as such, are legitimate objects for man's research. Surely, the potential energy in the human intellect will not allow it to remain at its present stage, but will continually urge it onwards and upwards. What limits God in His providence has seen fit to put upon us, we cannot tell. For every moment, the horizon is receding, and our outlook becomes larger, though some still may find it difficult to bring their eyesight into focus and consequently as a consequence required. The marvelous of today is the commonplace of tomorrow. Our notion of what is natural grows with our greater knowledge. Throughout the pages of this book, we have, in general, avoided offering explanations of or theories to account for the different stories. Here something may be said on this point. As we have already pointed out, The expression ghost stories covers a multitude of different phenomena. Many of these may be explained as hallucinations, which does not imply that they are simply the effect of imagination and nothing more. The mind receives the hallucination as if it came through the channels of sense, and, accordingly, externalizes the impression, seeking its source in the world outside itself. Whereas in all hallucinations, the source is within the mind and is not derived from an impression received through recognized organ of sense. Many of these hallucinations are termed vertical, or truth-telling, because they coincide with real events occurring to another person. Illustrations of this will be found in chapter VI, I don't know my Roman numerals, you guys, from which it would appear that a dying person through the power is not necessarily confined to such occasionally has faculty of telepathy and communicating with another. The latter receives the impression and externalizes it, and so sees the ghost. To use the popular expression, okay, some hallucinations are auditory, i.e. sounds are heard which apparently do not correspond to any objective reality. Incomprehensible though it may appear, it may be possible for sounds, and very loud ones too, to be heard by one or more persons. The said sounds being purely hallucinatory and not causing any disturbance in the atmosphere. Some of the incidents may be explained as due to telepathy, the mysterious power by which the mind can communicate with mind, though what telepathy is, or through what medium is propagated. No one can tell as yet. Belief in this force is increasing, because, as Professor Sir W. Barrett remarks, hostility to a new idea arises largely from its being unrelated to existing knowledge, and, as telepathy seems to the ordinary person to be analogous to wireless telegraphy, this is before we had wireless stuff, right? It is therefore accepted, I guess we did, it was like in Little House on the Prairie, like the trains. It is therefore accepted, or at least not laughed at, though how far the analogy really holds good is not at all certain. Again, there is the question of haunted houses and places, to accounts of which the first 5 chapters of this book is devoted. The actual evidence for many of these may not come up to the rigorous standards set by the SPR, but is beyond all doubt that persons who are neither fools, liars, nor drunkards firmly believe that they have seen and heard the things related in these chapters, not to speak of the rest of the chapters, or that they have been told such by those in whose statements they place implicit confidence, while certain are they that they are telling the truth, that they have not only written down the stories for the compilers, but have given their names and addresses as well, though not always for publication. Can we fling aside such a weight of evidence as unworthy of even cursory examination? This would hardly be a rational attitude to adopt. Various theories to account for these strange hauntings have been formulated, which may be found on pages 199 to 200 of Sir William Barrett's Cyclical Research, and so not need be given here. We did read that book. Yet, when all is said and done, the very formulating of theories, so far from solving problems, only raises further and more complex ones. Perhaps the greatest of which is, have the spirits of the departed anything to do with the matter? Excuse me. As we have shown, we hope with success. In the preceding paragraphs, many ghosts have no necessary connection with the denizens of the unseen world, but may be explained as being due to laws of nature, which at present are very obscure. Does this hold good of all ghosts, or are some of them to be placed to the credit of those who have passed beyond the veil, or perhaps to spirits, good or evil, which have never been incarnate? That is the problem for the future, for in the present state of our knowledge, it would be premature to give a direct answer, either positive or negative. This book was written with a twofold purpose. First, that the entertaining of our readers, in which we trust we've been successful. Secondly, to stimulate thought. For strange though it may seem, authenticated ghost stories have a certain educative value. Taking them at their lowest, they suggest inquiry into the strange workings of the human mind. At their highest, how many strange lines of inquiry do they not suggest? For it is obvious that we have now arrived at one of those interesting periods in the history of human thought which might be described as the return of the pendulum. We are in the process of emerging from a very materialistic age, when men either refused to believe anything that was contrary to their normal experience, or else leaven their spiritual doctrines and beliefs with the leaven of materialism. The pendulum has swung to its highest point in this respect, and is now commencing to return, so perhaps the intellectual danger of the future will be that men, instead of believing too little, will believe too much. Now is the time for leaving a careful foundation. Cyclical research, spiritualism. My phone is like, I'm being messed with. And the like are not ends in themselves. They are only means to an end. At the present state of thought, the transition from the old to the new, from the lower to the higher, it is inevitable that there must be confusion and doubt. And the earnest thinker must be prepared to suspend judgment on many points. But at a later stage, when all absurdity, error, and fraud, now so closely connected with cyclical research in its various branches, will have been swept away, truth will emerge and lift the human race to a pure and loftier conception of God and His universe. That is the end of the book. Before we move on, I want to add also that, when he talks about, this is like 1913, right? That's what we established. When the author talks about, I'm going to flip through here real quick too. When the author talks about, progress with ghost hunting in science, perfectly honest, I know you guys see all these really cool equipment coming out, these cool toys to play with when you're out in the field. But the honest to truth thing is, we haven't gotten any further than we were back in the 1800s, as far as study goes. I mean, we're still, other than these fancy equipment that we're using now, to where we can actually hear EVPs and all this and all that. But much beyond that stuff, these things where we see the stick people and all that, much beyond all that stuff, it hasn't progressed. We don't know any more than we did back in the 1600s and 1700s. We have no idea. I'm looking to make sure TikTok's not mad at me for this. Cool, thank you for the gift, thank you. We haven't progressed. And I know a lot of people think we've progressed so far with this ghost hunting stuff, but we haven't. It hasn't been a progression like they're talking about how at some point, things were going. I'm getting all the licenses. I have to go through the licenses before I get through here. We just haven't progressed. We're not any further than we were. So it's still the same investigation. It's nice to see, like back then, they really the cyclical research guys out of England, they looked at everything just like we do with debunkers on our paranormal teams. They looked at everything, and that's what we're doing. So I mean, we really haven't progressed any further, but that's okay, right? That's okay. It's okay. Like it says in here, we may never progress. We may never actually know until it's our time to pass away and cross over. I mean, that's the bottom line with all this. Okay, we're at the end now. Okay. So let me get out of here and see if I can figure out how to get into where I need to be to get back to my library. So give me a minute. Okay. I want to get back in my library. Here we go. Let's see if my book's in. Oh no, it has stopped. Okay. I don't see it in my library. That's not good. Login failed. Well, let's just get back in then. Let me see if I can pull it out of my library. Hang on. See, I was hoping I could actually get my library. Where's my download? Give me a second, you guys. Let me get in here. Oh, here we go. Let's see if it's in here. Internally shared download. What day was this? This may be the one here. Give me a minute. Let's see if it's this one. Nope. That's another one. Okay, we don't want that one. Hang on. Anyway, it should be here. I downloaded it. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. Give me a second to find this. I'll have to go in and get it. No, we did that one. Where's the latest one? This is unknown. Is it this one? Let's see. It's got to be here. Nope. Wow, we should have downloaded. Okay, let me go back in and get it here. Anyway, yeah, I was kind of hoping it would download, but it didn't go in. So hang on. I must have downloaded the wrong type of file. Let me get in here and get it. But anyway, getting back to this is that, back into Chrome. But that's the truth of the matter is, we really haven't, okay, here we go. So, let's try, I'm just going to read it off of here. Let's just read now. There we go. We're just going to read it from here. I just wonder if it'll let me get back in the right page. Okay, I need to make this like really huge to read it. We'll start this today. I can just pull it out here. And that's not going to work because it's not going to, hang on. So really, alright, hang on. So it's going to be the Gutenberg book of famous modern ghost stories is what we're going to be reading. But, I need to get in there and get it downloaded. So, e-readers, EPUB, I'm going to try this one, older e-readers. Try that one, or let me go with plain text. Let's see if I can get in that way. Alright, let me go back in now and see if we got it. But the truth of the matter is on this that, like I said, we really haven't gotten that far. Or progressed that far. Yeah, close the link. Okay. Alright, take me out. Take me out. Sometimes it doesn't download good. But, because I'm not using a Kindle, I'm using a different type of book to get access to it. So give me a second to get in here. There we go. Okay, I'm not seeing the book download. Maybe, oh, here's files. Hang on. Let me see if it's in here. Internal shared storage. Okay, let's go to this one. Huh, weird. Well, you can't do this to me today. All books. See, it's stopping on me. Well, we probably might have to wait on this till tomorrow, till next week, because I was hoping it would download. It should be here, but it's not. Hang on. Just bear with me. EPUB. Let's see if it comes up. Ah, there it is. Okay, we got it. We got this now. Wow, now where'd it go? Ah, there we go. The book we're going to be reading is Famous Modern Ghost Stories. Now, I don't know if it's true ghost stories or not. Maybe as I'm reading, I can kind of figure that out. But this is where we're going to start. But like I said, just to kind of reiterate what I was saying is that we don't know, if we're ever going to understand the spirit world. Okay, we don't know. We have psychic mediums with us and things like that, but the truth of the matter is the science hasn't changed all that much as far as looking at this stuff. And science really hasn't been interested in looking at this stuff. So, are there spirits? I've done enough investigations. I've done almost 300 investigations over the last 20, 25 years. I think there are. We've come in contact with a lot of really strange phenomena. We've been pushed and shoved, and we've heard voices and heard a lot of stories about it. So yeah. But, as far as, like I said, as far as the science part goes, scientists have not really been interested in looking into this because a lot of scientists still think it's hooey. Okay? So, right. The people that do know don't want to tell us. And that was the thing. I'm looking over at TikTok over here, you guys, and there got some questions on there. All right, well, let's get into the next book. Project Gutenberg for you guys. If you want to read free non-copyright books, copyright free. They've got thousands of books. The books they've been transcribed, all this stuff, starting from like the 1600s up to like 1944. And they're all copyright free. There's story after story after story after story. And we've been reading Dracula. Last year we read Dracula and Frankenstein. A lot of the classics. And you can find a lot of the classics on here. They're fun to read. The books we've been reading on here, of course, have been copyright free. So this is another one. So it's called The Famous Book of Modern Ghost Stories. So let me get this going here. We have contributors in here. The compiler for this book is Dorothy Scarborough. Lots of contributors in here. So I'm not going to get into that. We just want to get into the start of the Project Gutenberg. Here we go. Famous modern ghost stories. And like I said, I don't know if these are true or not. Like I said when I did do the intro for this show, is that, we read from these books. We don't, sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not. But it's kind of fun to read the ones that aren't, to see what people come up with. Okay? Especially Charles Dickens. He had some great stuff. Edgar Allan Poe, right? Okay? So let's see where we're at with this. But the truth of the matter is, maybe we'll have a talk one day, and just me talking about ghosts and in general, and how the study has changed and how the study has not changed. How it stayed the same over the last couple hundred years or whatever they started. Because, like I said, not a lot has changed, except that we have electronic goodies to play with. Electronic toys. Okay. So here we go. We got an introduction by Dorothy Scarborough, Ph.D. Dorothy Scarborough, Ph.D. is a lecturer in English, Columbia University, was a lecturer in English. Columbia University, author of The Supernatural in Modern English Fiction. We got to find that one. Fugitive Verses from a Southern Porch, etc. Compiler of humorous ghost stories. Hey, we're going to have to find that one too. And this was published in 1921 by G.P. Putnam's Sons, New York and London, the Knickerbocker Press. It's dedicated to Ashley Horace Thorndike, professor of English, Columbia University, who guided my earlier studies in the supernatural. So, introduction. The imperishable ghost. Okay? So, like I said, these may be true, these may be not. So, just bear with me on it. And, let's see what we can do here. So, we've got quite a few that we're going to go through. I see quite a few stories. So, okay. Ghosts are the true. It's called the Imperishable Ghost Introduction. Ghosts are the true immortals. And the dead grow more alive all the time. Wraiths have a greater vitality today than before. They are far more numerous than at any time in the past, and people are more interested in them. There are persons that claim to be acquainted with specific spirits, to speak with them, to carry on correspondence with them, and even some who insist that they are private secretaries to the dead. Others of us mortals, more reserved, are content to keep such distance as we may from even the shadow of a shade. But there's no getting away from ghosts nowadays. For even if you shut your eyes to them in actual life, you stumble over them in the books you read. You see them on the stage and on the screen. And you hear them on the lecture platform. Even a lodge in any vast wilderness will have the company of spirits. Man's love for the supernatural, which is one of the most natural things about him, was never more marked than at present. You may go a ghosting in any company today, and all aspects of literature, novels and short stories, poetry and drama alike, reflect the shadeless spirit. The latest census of the haunting world shows a vast increase in population, which might be explained on various grounds. Life is so inconveniently complex nowadays, what with income taxes and other visitations of government, that it is hard for us to have the added risk of wraiths. But there's no escaping. Many persons of today are in the same mental state as one Mr. Boggs told of in a magazine story. A rural gentleman who was agitated over spectral visitants. He had once talked at a seance with a speaker who claimed to be the spirit of his brother, Wesley Boggs, but who conversed only on blue suspenders. A subject not of vital interest. Still, I gotta get this adjusted, it's driving me crazy. Wesley in the flesh. Still, Mr. Boggs reflected, I'm not so darn sure. In answer to suggestion regarding subliminal consciousness and dual personality as explanation of the strange things that come bolting into life, he said, it's Crawley. Any way you look at it, it is Crawley. Ghosts inside you are as bad as ghosts outside you. I like this guy. There are others today who are not so darn sure. See, and that happens now. There's no difference. One may conjecture divers reasons for this multitude of ghosts in late literature. Perhaps spooks are like small boys that rush into fires, unwilling to miss anything and craving new sensations. And we mortals read about them to get vicarious thrills through the safe medium of fiction. The war made sensationalists of us all, and the drab every dryness of mortal life bores us. Man's imagination, always bigger than his environment, overleaps the barriers of time and space and claims all worlds are as eminent domain. So that literature, which he has the power to create, as he cannot create his material surroundings, possesses a dramatic intensity, an epic sweep unknown in actuality. In the last analysis, man is as great as his daydreams or his nightmares. Ghosts have always haunted literature, and doubtless always will. Specters seem never to wear out or to die, but renew their tissue, both of person and of raiment, in marvelous fashion, so that their number increases with Malthusian relentlessness. We of today have the ghosts that haunted our ancestors, as well as our own modern revenants. And there's no earthly use trying to banish them or exorcise them by such a simple thing as disbelief in them. Schopenhauer asserts that a belief in ghosts is born with man, that it is found in all ages and in all lands, and that no one is free from it. Since accounts vary, and our earliest antecedents were poor, it is difficult to establish the apostolic succession of spooks in actual life. But in literature, the line reaches back as far as the primeval picture writing. A study of animism in primitive culture shows many interesting links between the past and the present in this matter. And anyhow, since man knows that whether or not he has seen a ghost, presently he'll be one. We're all headed there. We're all headed there. He's fascinated with the subject. And he creates ghosts, not merely in his own image, but according to his dreams of power. The more man knows of natural laws, the keener he is about the supernatural. He may claim to have laid aside superstition, but he isn't to be believed in that. Though he has discarded witchcraft and alchemy, it is only that he may have more time for physical or cyclical research. True, he no longer dabbles with ancient magic. Well, some people still do, right? Some people still do. But that is because the modern types, as the Ouija board, entertain him more. He dearly loves to traffic with that other world of which he knows so little and concerning which he is so curious. Perhaps the war, possibly an increase in class consciousness, or unionization of spirits, or whatever you want to call it, has greatly energized the ghost in our day and given him both ambition and strength to do more things than ever. Sorry about that. Okay. Maybe pep tablets have been discovered on the other side as well. No longer is the ghost content to be seen and not heard, to slink around in shadowy corners as apologetically as poor relations. Wraiths now have a rambunctious vitality and self-assurance that are astonishing. Even the ghosts of folks dead so long they have forgotten about themselves are yawning, stretching their skeletons, and starting out to do a little haunting. Spooky creatures in such a wide diversity are abroad today that one is sometimes at a loss to know what to do. Jinn and body meet a body. Ghosts are entering all sorts of activities now, so that mortals had better look alive, else they'll be crowded out of their place in the shade. The dead are too much with us. Okay? Modern ghosts are less simple and primitive than their ancestors, and are developing complexes of various kinds. They are more democratic than of old, and have more of a diversity of interests, so that mortals have scarcely the ghost of a chance with them. They employ all the agencies and mechanisms known to mortals, and have in addition their own methods of transient and communication. Whereas in the past, a ghost had to stalk or glide to his haunts, now he has limousines and airplanes, so that naturally he can get in more work than before. He uses the wireless to send his messages, and is expert in all matter of scientific lines. In fact, his infernal efficiency and knowledge of science constitute the worst terror of the current specter. Who can combat a ghost that knows all about a chemical laboratory, that can add electricity to his other shocks, and can employ all mortal and immortal agencies as his own? Science itself is supernatural, as we see when we look at it properly. Modern literature, especially the most recent, shows a revival of old types of ghosts, together with the innovations of the new. There are specters that take a real part in the plot complication, and those that merely cast threatening looks at the living, or at least are content to speak a piece and then depart. Some spirits are dumb, while others are highly intelligent. Ghosts vary in many respects. Some, like the pallid shades of the past, altogether unlike the living, and with an unmistakable spectral form, or lack of it. They sweep like mist through the air or flutter like dead leaves in the gale. A gale always accompanied them as part of the stock furnishings. On the other hand, some revenants are so successfully made up that one doesn't believe them when they pridefully announce that they are a race. Some of them are, in fact, so alive that they don't themselves know they're dead. It's going to be a great shock to some of them one of these days to wake up and find out they're demised. Ghosts are more gregarious than in the past. Formerly, a shade slunk off by himself, as if ashamed of his profession, as if aware of the lack of cordiality of which he would be received, knowing that mortals shunned and feared him, and chary even of associating with his fellow shades. He writhed all by himself. The specters of the past, save in scenes of the lower world, were usually solitary creatures, driven to haunt mortals from very lonesomeness. Now, we have a chance to study the mob psychology of ghosts, and they come in maddening crowds whenever they like. Ghosts at present are showing an active interest not only in public affairs, but in ours as well. At least, we now have pictures and writing attributed to them. Perhaps annoyed by some of the inaccuracies published concerning them, for authors have in the past taken advantage of the belief that ghosts couldn't write back. They have recently developed itching pens. They use all the manner of utensils for expression now. There is the magic typewriter that spooks for John Kendrick Bangs, the boardwalk that Patience Worth executes for Mrs. Curran, and innumerable other specters that commandeer fountain pens and pencils and brushes to give their versions of infinity. There is a passion on the part of ghosts for being interviewed just now. At present, book reviewers, for instance, had better be careful, lest the race take their own method of answering criticism. It isn't safe to speak or write with anything but respect of ghosts now. De mortuis nil nisi bonum. Indeed. I tried. One should never make light of a shade. Modern ghosts have a more pronounced personality than the specters of the past. They have more strength of mind, as well as of body, than the colorless revenants of earlier literature, and they produce a more vivid effect on the beholder and the reader. They know more surely what they wish to do, and they advance relentlessly and with economy of effort to the effecting of their purpose, whether it be a pure horror, a beauty, or a pathos of humor. We have now many spirits in fiction that are pathetic without frightfulness, many that move us with a sense of poetic beauty rather than of curdling horror, who touch the heart as well as the spine of the reader. And the humorous ghost is a distinctive shade of today, with his quips and pranks and haunting grin. Whatever a modern ghost wishes to do or to be, he is or does with confidence and success. The spirit of the day is terrifyingly visible or invisible at will. The dreadful presence of a ghost that one cannot see is more unbearable than the specter that one can locate and attempt to escape from. The invisible haunting is representative in this volume by Fitzjames O'Brien's What Was It? One of the very best of the type, and one that has strongly influenced others. O'Brien's story preceded Guy de Maupassant's Leola. I'm trying. By several years, and must surely have suggested to Maupassant's as to Bierce in his The Damn Thing. Oops, I said a bad word. The damn thing. I'm going to say it. I can just get in trouble. The power of evil that can be felt but not seen. The wraith of the present carries with him more vital energy than his predecessors. is more athletic in his struggles with the unlucky whites he visits, and can coerce mortals to do his will by the laying on of hands as by the look or word. He speaks with more emphasis and authority, as well as with more human naturalness than the earlier ghosts. He has not only all the force he possessed in life, but in many instances he has access of power, which makes man a poor protagonist for him. Algernon Blackwood's spirits of evil, for example, have a more awful potentiality than any living person could have, and their will to harm has been increased immeasurably by the accident of death. If the facts bear out the fear, that is such in the case of life as in fiction, some of our social customs will be reversed. A man will strive by all means to keep his deadly enemy alive, lest death may endow him with tenfold power to hurt. Dark discarnate passions, disembodied hates, work evil where a simple ghost might be helpless and abashed. Algernon Blackwood has command over the spirits of air, and fire, and wave, so that his pages thrill with beauty and terror. He has handled almost all known aspects of the supernatural, and, from his many stories, he has selected, for this volume, The Willows as the best example of his ghostly art. Apparitions are more readily recognizable at present than in the past, for they carry into eternity all the disfigurements of physical peculiarities that the living bodies possessed, a fact discouraging to all persons not conspicuous for good looks. I'm in trouble. We're all in trouble. Freckles and warts, long noses, and missing limbs distinguish the ghosts and aid in crucial identification. The thrill of horror in Ambrose Bierce's story, The Middle Toe of the Right Foot, is intensified by the fact that the dead woman, who comes back in revenge to haunt her murderer, has one toe lacking as in life. Well, even Dickens' Christmas Carol, right? When he sees Jacob Marley. And, in a recent story, a surgeon whose desire to experiment has caused him needlessly to sacrifice a man's life on the operating table is haunted to death by the dismembered arm. Fiction shows us various ghosts with half faces and at least one notable spook that comes in half. Such ability, it will be granted, must necessarily increase the haunting power, for if a ghost may send a foot or an arm or leg to harry one person, he can dispatch his backbone or his liver or his heart to upset other human beings simultaneously in a sectional haunting at once economically efficient and terrifying. The beast with 5 fingers, for example, has a loathsome horror that a complete skeleton or conventionally equipped wraith could not achieve. Who can doubt that a bodiless hand, leaping up around its errands of evil, has a menace that a complete 6-foot frame cannot duplicate? Yet, in Quiller Couch's A Pair of Hands, whose pathos and beauty is the thought of the child hands coming back to serve others in homely tasks, surely no housewife in these helpless days would object to being haunted by such a delicate fashion. Ghosts of today have an originality that antique specters lacked. For instance, what story of the past has the awful thrill in Andreeva's Lazarus, the story of a man who came back from the grave, living yet dead, with the horror of the unknown so manifest in his face that those who looked into his deep eyes met their doom? Present-day writers skillfully combine various elements of awe with the supernatural as madness with the ghostly, adding to the chill of fear which each concept gives. Wilbur Daniel Steele's The Woman and 7 Brothers is an instance of that method. Poe's Ligeia, one of the best stories in any language, reveals the unrelenting will of the dead to effect its desire. The dead wife triumphantly coming back to life through the second wife's body. Whoa, okay. Olivia Howard Dunbar's The Shell of Sense is another instance of jealousy reaching beyond the grave. The Messenger, one of Robert W. Chambers' early stories, and an admirable example of the supernatural, has various thrills with its river of blood, its death's head moth, and the ancient but very active skull of the Black Priest, who was shot as a traitor to his country, but lived on as an energetic and courseful ghost. The Shadows on the Wall by Mary E. Wilkins Freeman, which one prominent librarian considers the best ghost story ever written, is original in the method of its horrific manifestation. Isn't it more devastating to one's sanity to see the shadow of a revenge ghost cast on the wall, to know that a vindictive spirit is beside one but invisible, than to see the spectre himself? Under such circumstances, the sight of a skeleton or a sheeted phantom would be downright comforting. The Mass of Shadows, by Anatole France, is an example of the modern tendency to show phantoms in groups as contrasted with the solitary habits of ancient specters. Here the spirits of those who had sinned for love could meet and celebrate Mass together in one evening of the year. The delicate beauty of many of the modern ghostly stories is apparent in The Haunted Orchard by Richard Le Gallienne. For this prose poem has an appeal of tenderness rather than of terror. And everybody who has had affection for a dog will appreciate the pathos of the little sketch by Marla J. Glosser. At the gate, the dog appears more frequently as a ghost than does any other animal, perhaps because man feels that he is nearer the human, though the horse is as intelligent and as much beloved. There is an innate pathos about a dog somehow that makes his appearance in ghostly form more credible and sympathetic, while the ghost of any other animal would tend to have a comic connotation. Other animals in fiction have power of magic, notably the cat, but they don't appear as spirits. But the dog is seen as a pathetic symbol of faithfulness, as a tragic sufferer, or as a terrible revenge ghost. Dogs may come singly or in groups. Edith Wharton has 5 different sorts in a curfew or in packs, as in Eden Philpotts, another little heath hound. An illuminating instance of the power of fiction over the human faith is furnished by the case of Arthur Machen's The Boatman, included here. This story is what started the whole tissue of legendary concerning supernatural aid given the Allied armies during the war. This purely fictitious account of an angel army that saved the day at Mons was so vivid that its readers accepted it as truth and obstinately clung to that idea in the face of Mr. Machen's persistent and bewildered explanations that he had invented. The whole thing. Editors wrote leading articles about it. Ministers preached sermons on it, and the general public preferred to believe in the Mons angels rather than in Arthur Machen. Mr. Machen has shown himself an artist in the supernatural, one whom his generation has not been discerning enough to appreciate. Some of his material is painfully morbid. But his pen is magic, and his inkwell holds many dark secrets. We'll have to be careful reading that one. In his collection, I have attempted to include specimens of a few of the distinctive types of modern ghosts, as well as to show the art of individual stories. Examples of the humorous ghosts are omitted here, as a number of them will be brought together in humorous ghost stories. That'll probably be the next book after this. The companion volume to this, perfect. The ghost lover who reads these pages will think of others that he would like to see included. For I believe that readers are more passionately attached to their own favorite ghost tales than to any other form of literature. But critics will admit the manifest impossibility of bringing together in one volume all the famous examples of the art. Some of the well-known tales, particularly the older ones, on which copyright has expired, have been reprinted so often as to be almost hackneyed, while others have been of necessity omitted because of the limitations of space. D.S., New York, 1921. All right, guys, you know what? 6:06. So, we are going to continue this next week, and we'll get into this book. And let me make sure I can mark my page here. Hang on. There it is. We will get into this book next week and start it. The first chapter is The Willows. So, obviously, these are ghosts of literature, which is fine. You know, like I said, some stories, some books we have are true ghost stories. Some books we have aren't. But you can see, obviously, that this is written by a scientist. So that's what makes something like this so exciting, to have her go through and pick out these really cool books for us. This really cool book for us to read. All right? So, real quickly, I'm going to tell you guys, tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, Joshua Cutchin's going to be with me. And over here on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and say it since we're at the end. at my YouTube channel at California Haunts YouTube. And we're going to be talking about Bigfoot and other high strangeness. So it should be an interesting night tomorrow. Tuesday night, I'm going to be guest on Paul Dale Roberts' show, so I'll be doing that at 6 p.m. Pacific, okay? But tomorrow at 5:30 p.m., Joshua Cutchin will be with me, and I'll be interviewing him about Bigfoot and other weird stuff. And then at 7 p.m. Pacific, actually, between 7:15 and 7:30 Pacific p.m., we will be back over on TikTok doing live tarot card readings for you guys. So just know that. So that's what's going on tomorrow. Like I said, I apologize for not doing the lunch thing today like I wanted to, but it's cold. It's cold and it's windy. And this is what gets you. Today is like 58 degrees. Tomorrow we're bumping back up to 75. This is the stuff my mother would call pneumonia weather. Okay, so I just want to update you guys. Also, more exciting news on the horizon. I don't know if it's going to be starting this week or next week, but I just got the okay to use YouTube to use TikTok Studio to where now, because I do broadcast via Restream to other places, we're going to be able to include TikTok in that. So the shows I do for California Haunts Radio that everybody's going over to YouTube to watch, will be broadcast on TikTok. So it's gonna be kind of cool, okay? So I'm gonna have to figure out the logistics and all that, and how that's gonna work. It's gonna be a lot of button pushing and mistakes made and all that good stuff. You know how it is, trial and error. But we're gonna, within the next 2 weeks here, we will be broadcasting the regular radio shows that I do for my regular podcast over here on TikTok, as well as the tarot card readings. So it should be interesting and fun and a lot going on. And we're gonna be doing field trips every weekend with everybody, as far as TikTok goes. Every Sunday or Saturday, depending on my schedule. I do private readings on the weekends as well, so I have to schedule around that. But we will be doing field trips next weekend. I believe we're going to be doing a field trip to the Sacramento Zoo. They do have a newborn giraffe over there. I think it's been a couple months, but a young giraffe, and so we're going to go check that out, feed the giraffes. Maybe we'll take a picnic out there, have a picnic at the zoo with you guys. But we definitely, that's going to be Saturday, I believe. Hopefully Saturday we can do that. We'll see. It depends if I have readings on Saturday. If I have readings on Saturday, it'll be Sunday that we go out there. But, yeah, so, okay. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. You can reach us at well, you can't even reach us. So I don't have my website up yet. I will have my product website up. We got some new hats and shirts coming out and stuff that you guys can take a look at. My tarot card website will be up. My tarot reading website will be up. And then right behind that, the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team website will be coming up as well. So, and the radio site will be coming back up too. So little by little, it's baby steps, get everything back up and running and all that. So I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. For you guys, come on over to YouTube, find California Haunts on YouTube. Come over, subscribe for the time being, and come over and join me for a talk about Bigfoot and other high strangeness with Joshua Cutchin at 5:30 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. All right, TikTok. I'll see you. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Have a good evening, and that's gonna do it for that. Okay, now we're back over here. Same thing going on. That I won't have to do this in multiples anymore because it's all going to go out automatically. That's what would be nice. I want to thank everybody for their patience, especially when I couldn't find the stupid book. But anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, with Joshua Cutchin and Bigfoot and other high strangeness. All right. Have a great evening, everybody, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.